everybody, Earl at thelogbook.com, back for more Voyages of Shelf Discovery. This is one of my more recent arrivals. If you've been keeping up with the various Star Wars streaming series on Disney+, you'll recognize these guys from late in the first season of Ahsoka, Captain Enoch and Thrawn's Night Troopers. It sounds like a band, doesn't it? Captain Enoch and Thrawn's Night Troopers, opening for Jethro Tull at the Palladium. Tickets go on sale Thursday at all Sound Warehouse locations. Okay, sorry. I don't know where I was going with that. But rather than doling these guys out individually, this is something that Hasbro has been doing in recent years, and this is the first time they've rolled out an army building box that I could not pass up. Because these guys had a very unique look, especially the captain himself in place of the usual stormtrooper faceplate. You had this weird kind of almost ancient Egyptian sarcophagus-looking faceplate. It's just very unnerving to see on a stormtrooper, with great big black eyes. So, instant hit there, even though the guy barely does anything. And the night troopers get sent out without him, and they get killed in great numbers, by Ezra and Sabine and Ahsoka. Go figure. But kind of in the lore of the show, these were stormtroopers that came to this other galaxy with Grand Admiral Thrawn, who was originally kind of taken out of the continuity because the books that introduced him were deemed no longer quite so official, shall we say. They were dropped into the Legends category, which means that, these stories are told, but they are not necessarily canonical, or whatever, which is a thing that sometimes I think people waste way too much sweat and worry over when there are far more important things going on in the world that demand that kind of energy and attention. But they brought Thrawn back first in the animated series Rebels, and now in Ahsoka, which follows up directly on Rebels. Ahsoka's kind of like Season 5 of Rebels, basically, but all of a sudden it's live action and not CG animated cartoon. So these are stormtroopers that came to this outer galaxy with Grand Admiral Thrawn, and something happened to them, and he also had some of the Night Sisters of Dathomir with him, which, if you followed Clone Wars at all, you'll know that they are also trouble, dark force users. And so apparently all of this red wrapping, all of this strange, and again, you have little hints of kind of ancient Egyptian burial rites going on. It's like these guys are partially mummified, but somehow that is keeping them alive, like they would be dead if not for all of that. It's weird. Or maybe it's some form of mind control. They really didn't go into a huge amount of detail on the show itself, but much is implied with their appearance. So this is the first time I've gotten one of these army building boxes. Now, despite the illustration on the front, there are only 4 figures in the box, and I knew that going in. And they were very clear about that point, so opening the box is very no-nonsense. You've got this cardboard truss in there to keep everyone separated, keep everyone from rattling around in there. There's no untying of plastic zip ties or anything like that. They're just in individual wrappers. Cool. This is my kind of unboxing. Okay, so there is the captain himself. First order business, I love that modern action figures now have holstering options for the weapons. In the name of not losing the weapons immediately, the holster is where they automatically go. I'll wait for the camera to focus on him a little bit. Of course, it would help if I centered him there. The detail is fantastic. And yes, the face is still unnerving. Now, these guys are super articulated, and I could not get him to stand. In the interest of keeping things somewhat tight here, let's move on to the rest of the night troopers, and we'll worry about getting the captain to stand later. These guys each come with a standard stormtrooper blaster, and again, yeah, we're just wrapped. And he looks like he's going to do a performance of Riverdance with his feet pointed up like that. These super delicate ankle joints on these. I appreciate articulation. I'm not sure these guys needed to be quite that articulated. I love the paint detail on these. The armor is cracked, and there's kind of this ancient Japanese stonework thing going on, where those cracks have been filled in with something gold. And so again, we assume that this is some Night Sister magic going on that is keeping these fellas going. Can I get the captain to stand now? Just out of embarrassment, since one of his dudes is standing. That's a no. Okay. Moving along. Again, blaster and figure in a baggie. That's about my speed these days. I like this. There's also some hip articulation on this. I'm trying to praise and criticize in equal measure. The detailing is astounding. The articulation it's almost so articulated that it's a bit of a problem. And I will address this again shortly. Again, running into trouble getting the guy to stand. And those ankle joints are super fiddly, and they feel super delicate. Like I was trying to be very careful and not break anyone's foot off. Our fourth and final guy. Let's retrieve him from the bag. Yet another variation. Everyone seems to be leaning over, kind of like, I don't know, they're slightly drunk or something. I don't know if you remember old Mego figures from the late 70s, like the Black Hole or Buck Rogers, or like early Hasbro G.I. Joes, the small Joes, not the foot tall ones from the 60s, but we're talking the small ones from the 80s. All of those were super articulated, and they had an internal rubber band that would eventually wear out and get brittle and break. These guys, their hip articulation kind of feels like that. Kind of feels like, that rubber band is about to break. I don't know if that's actually how these are put together. I would think they're probably not. But getting them to stand up straight was a chore. And as you can see, I finally had to get a stand. One of my generic stands that I have for vintage collection figures. I had to put a stand under the captain to get him to stand up at that weird lean. Again, it looks like everyone has been hitting the really fermented blue milk here. If you look carefully, you can see that this is a very nice use of limited resources. They've only done... They have done resculpting to account for the red wrappings of various body parts, like the torso. Obviously, you see the torso is repeated there on the two guys in the middle. You see, if you look at the second... the first guy to the left, or to your right, of the captain. His right leg and the right leg of the guy furthest on the right, same wrapping. And same deal with the left leg wrappings on the last two guys on your right. This is nicely done. This is nicely done. You could get a whole other box set of different variants by combining and recombining these pieces in different ways. And I always admire good utilization of limited resources like that. But getting the guys to stand up straight... Here's the thing. They kept falling over. This is a loop of a very short section of video where I actually got them to stand up. They kept falling over. Every time they fall over, little weapons go flying. I've got 2 cats in here that I don't want to eat the little laser guns. And so, until I can figure out a solution for getting Captain Enoch and Thrawn's night troopers to stand up straight, they went back in the box. That is sad. Brand new, out of the box. I opened them just for this. They went back in the box. And so I've been having this kind of nagging feeling in the back of my head that maybe in the future, maybe what my future looks like for Star Wars collecting is I get vintage collection to hang back here on the wall, but I get retro collection, the ones who are really, old school Kenner style, and get those to put on the shelf if I'm going to have openers at all. Maybe I should have waited for Captain Enoch and the Night Troopers to show up in retro collection form, because it was so fiddly getting them to stand that the safest place for them is back in the box. And that's kind of sad. If they require specialized stands, those should be included with them. So, fantastic detailing here. I'm just not sure about the format. I'm not sure about... Do we really need this much articulation? Of course, I'm old school. I am from the Kenner generation. I was fine with the 5 points of articulation we had, plus maybe one weapon. These guys have wrists that turn and forearms that turn, and their legs can be angled outward and their hips can be rotated, and their ankles, I think their ankles are the main culprits here, but the ankles and the hips in concert, just, it's not a good look. So a very qualified recommendation on these. I love the look of the characters. I still do. That was why I snapped them up the moment they were available. Well, not the moment they were available, but the moment I had the budget for them while they were available. I actually don't know if these may have been pre-order only, but they may also be on Hasbro's website still. But know this going in, you may need stands for these guys, because the magic of the Night Sisters is wearing off on this box full of guys very quickly, and they're about to keel over like the zombie stormtroopers that they are.